So, now we come to the official part after we had this informal living room meeting already yesterday. So, first of all, I would like to start with a short introduction. And the first thing, of course, I would like to do, I would like to welcome you all here in Prague. I'd like to thank the IJOC for organizing once again this fantastic meeting, which is an extraordinary event in the FEI officials calendar already since years. And I guess you can all be very proud that you are the ones who are in charge of that and who are organizing that. I don't think that there is any similar event for the other disciplines. And this event has really developed over the year, and the number of participants is still growing on a very, very high level. And to have something like 120 people here once again shows how important education, information, also to a certain degree for sure social life is for you. So I would like to welcome you all here on behalf of the FEI. I'm very happy to send you the greetings from the FEI President Ingmar de Vos, from the Secretary General, and also from the Jumping Director. Unfortunately, they can't be with us today because they have a very tough agenda, and for that reason, they can't join us. However, maybe they are watching the live stream, who knows? So I also would like to welcome the people who are watching this. Everything is, let's call it, broadcasted live on Facebook for the people of the IJOC Facebook group who can't be with us. So welcome people in TV land. I hope that everything is loud and clear and that you can see us. I see that our technicians give me a thumb up, so I guess everything works very well. Having said that, you will have a lot of opportunities to ask questions today, but due to the fact that, first of all, here in the room, everybody should understand everything, but also the people in TV land should understand what you are asking. Please, every time you are asking a question, it would be good if you wait till you got the microphone, and it would be good if you would then just introduce yourself, that people know who you are, because the problem is that the people in TV land only see your back, so they do not see who is talking. So if you would just mention your name, and then you can ask your question. If we can agree on that, that would really help. So, having a look at the roadmap in jumping for 2020, of course there are some very important events, some challenges, and we all count on you for your support, that you help us making all these events and all these things a huge success. On top of the list, for sure, the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. I can assure you that in Japan everything is really working very well. They make a lot of progress there. Everything is more or less ready. I'm sure that we will have fantastic equestrian Olympic Games in all the 3 Olympic disciplines. I know that it will be somewhat challenging because we are having a new format. It takes some time to convince people that we are doing the right things. I'm sure that it will be a success. We are sure that we get the support also from the other stakeholders, and I'm pretty sure everybody who goes to Tokyo will enjoy it, and people who can't go can watch it on television, and that shows already how important this is, that we are staying in Olympic Games, because that's the best way to show our beautiful sport to a wider audience. We still have our own series, which are very, very important to us. First of all, the FEI Nations Cup series, and of course, the fantastic FEI Nations Cup final, once again in Barcelona, as we do it already since a few years. It is very good to hear from riders, for example, how important this is for them to compete in Nations Cups. We always think that it is on money, on all these things, but we have been assured by a lot of riders that one of the factors that they love Nations Cup is that they like to represent their country, that they like the team spirit and all these things. So we are looking forward to a fantastic new season. For those of you who are coming from Europe, you might have heard that there is a new format for the former Division 1, which is a new concept which is organized by the European Equestrian Federation. We are looking forward to make experience with this concept as well. A completely new format with a semi-final and a final and so on. I'm pretty sure that this will be a huge success as well. Finally, the other flagship we have, of course, the FAI World Cup Series and, of course, the World Cup Final this year in Las Vegas. You know about this successful concept because the World Cup is really something which works all over the world, on different levels for sure. You can't compare the leagues in the developing countries with a league in Western Europe. However, this is really helping the sport to grow worldwide. And riders love it to qualify for the World Cup final. Some might then not compete, but just to qualify for the final is already something riders are really looking forward to. And I'm pretty sure we will have another fantastic season. On top of that, there will be a lot of continental and regional championships on different levels. You might be involved at that as officials all over the world. Thank God what we can see is that there is still an increasing number of events from grassroots to top sport. It's unbelievable how the number of five-star events is going up. It's still going up. You can discuss whether this brings only advantages or whether this is also a kind of risk, at least a kind of challenge, let's say. However, it is good to see that the sport is growing. And once again, the sport is growing worldwide in regions where maybe 20 years ago there was no horse sport at all. And in the meantime, it's growing and growing and growing. And if you see what is going on in the Arab world or in China or in Asia in general, it's really good to see that the sport is still growing. One thing which is absolutely important for us and which still has priority is the clean sport. We discussed yesterday with Göran already in his presentation how important clean sport is, but not only clean sport from the factor of that athletes might do things which are not allowed, which are not permitted, but as well to give them opportunities to compete under good conditions, and it starts with stables, with stable security. Contamination is one of the points we discuss again and again, and we all know that riders have a very valid point there. So that's another time I would like to encourage you really to keep an eye on that. When you go to shows and when you see that there's something wrong with stable security, with not disinfected boxes and so on, please do the necessary. You heard yesterday from Göran, at least the people who were here, what the issues are. So it would be very good if you would help us to improve the situation. Riders would very much appreciate that, owners as well. As you might have noticed already, what we also do is we really have a focus on education. And I won't say too much about that because we will have Frank Spadinger, the Director of Education of Officials, here with us. You met him already yesterday. I'm very happy that he made it this year because we tried to invite him already last year. However, that was just 1 week after he entered the office and he was still trying to find his office in the FAI. So we thought maybe we give him a little bit of time and we invite him then for the next year, and successfully we did. So I will not tell you too much about education. I will only raise really a few bullet points there, and Frank will take you through the whole concept a little later. Talking about education, introduction of the CES. I don't think that I have to say too much about that. Some of you will do the test here. Others did it already at home or will do it at home. It's a first step. I think it's a big step in the right direction. Any further details come from Frank later. What we did is we introduced a promotion course for FEI Level 4 jumping judges. This is a first step to improve the education for the top officials in our discipline. We started with the judges. There are some projects in the pipeline for the stewards and for the course designers as well. As this is a judges seminar, just a few words about that. We are doing two things. The one thing is we will take the potential new candidates, new level 4 judges, through a test, partly online, partly on site. But we have decided as well that we will take all the existing level 4 judges through a test. Not with the goal of kicking people out, but with the goal to motivate the people to do a little bit of education and to polish their knowledge about rules. And like it or not, the sport has changed over the years. The challenges are different. You might need other skills, and we just want to test that we have the right people in the right positions. So that is the reason that we test as well the existing level 4 judges. We will do similar things, most likely for course designers and stewards later this year. There is a sort of revision of the education system for the FEI jumping officials. We had a very successful meeting earlier this week. The course director generals for the 3 parts, for the stewarding, for the course design, and for the judges. We are working very closely with Frank's department, and we are trying what has to be modified, and that has to go through the normal channels, and it has to be approved. So I'm not talking about things which haven't been approved. But there might be some changes, and the idea is really to increase the level of our officials, the education level, not necessarily the level of the number which is after the L, not level 3, level 4, level 5, but the level of your knowledge. And I guess you are all supporting that because we want to see good sport, but we also have to have good officials who enable people to do good sport. A few bullet points I would like to raise. First of all, appointments. I'm not going to promise you all appointments. This is not what I'm going to do. What I'm going to say is we try to bring more and more and more people in to give them appointments. If you receive an appointment and you have accepted that, please let us know if for whatever reason you can't do it. That might happen, because something might happen during the year and you can't do it. Please inform the jumping department immediately about that we can find a substitution. That would be great if you do. I said we try to bring more and more people in. I have to admit that sometimes it happens that somebody slips through our net. So if you received appointments in the past and you haven't got anything this year, and you are pretty sure that there is not really a reason for that, please let us know. It happens sometimes. In the meantime, we appoint something like 150 judges per year, and then it can happen for all these shows that somebody disappears. It can happen. We apologize for that. Let us know if this is an issue, and we try to solve that. In a by-away sentence, as of course, some people sometimes ask the question, why is this person appointed here and not me, and another one is appointed there? And as we also found out that sometimes we make mistakes by sending the wrong person to a wrong place. Of course, we will use all the information we get here with the new education system, with the competency evaluation. And we will also take a look at that when it comes to appointments in the future. And of course, people with good results might get better shows. I guess there is a certain logic behind that. Talking about appointments, if you have been appointed, you have to do a report. I know from my own experience that sometimes it can be really challenging. It can be somewhat difficult to convince riders to do the riders' report, to get the figures from the organizers and all these things. We are trying to improve situations. A lot of these reports are online now. I guess most of you have made experiences with that. That makes things easier because you can do already parts of the report on site. I am fully aware that it gets more and more challenging for you to do all these things. If you are the president of the ground jury or the foreign judge, if you are just thinking about all the reports and all the paperwork you have in case of a fall of a rider or a horse, that takes already part of your time during the day. And we have to take a look at that. And as I'm in the same position as you are, I'm also making my experiences at shows where I'm officiating. We have to see that at least, to be very careful here, that at least we do not increase that workload. Because at some shows, especially when you go to a tour with several arenas happening at the same time, you can walk around the whole day just collecting the papers of faults, which means that at the same time you can't judge anymore. This might have an influence on the number of judges we have to have at shows. So I don't think that we can increase that workload. We have reached already a limit, and we have to see how we can limit that or bring that limit down. But definitely it can't be more workload. More or less as last point, I would like to draw your attention to that FEI Officials Code of Conduct, which is available now already since 2 years, and also to the conflict of interest policy we have. Please take a look at that. You know that you can find that in the general regulations. It's Annex H as far as I know. Have a look at that. We interfered several times last year when we got a schedule and we saw that people should not judge. One reason could be that you are too close to a federation and you are judging championships. We appointed you, and then we saw you are also a representative of a federation which takes part at the championships, that it's clear that you can't be the ground jury president there. It would be nice if you would be a little bit more proactive, because we are checking schedules again and again, but sometimes, once again, somebody slips through the net. All the busy people in the jumping department, and they really do a big job and a fantastic job, but sometimes it happens because they do not know all of you by name or by face. It can happen that we approve a schedule, but please be so honest and then just tell us early enough that, or tell the organizing committee on invitation, that you are happy to come as a member, but you can't be the ground jury president, for example, or not the chief steward, and so on and so on. You know about that. I'm not even trying to explain to you the legal consequences, because Michael is the better one to do this, and as long as you are not asking the question, we will not go there. But there might be legal consequences if we have a problem and a wrong person has made a wrong decision. CAS would not be too happy with that, so please avoid these situations. Finally, and to finish that first introduction part, I would really like to thank you. I would really like to thank you on behalf of the FEI, on behalf of the discipline jumping, for all the work you really do. And it's not only an investment of time, it's as well an investment of money and other things. We are absolutely sure that we can count on you, and I hope that all the other stakeholders, and I'm sure that all the other stakeholders appreciate what you do as well. Sometimes you go through challenging situations. Sometimes in the heat of the moment, you might not really feel that people appreciate what you do. We have all had these situations. However, we are really happy and we are really proud of you that you are there each and every weekend in the cold, in the heat, under bad conditions. Lots of times also under very nice conditions. We shouldn't forget that. There are very, very nice shows we like to go to, but sometimes it is work and sometimes it's pleasure. But you are doing your job sometimes each and every weekend. And once again, a big, big thank on behalf of the FEI for the job you are doing. Having said that, now the moment you all have been waiting for, the most exciting part of each and every seminar, as I know, and I know that you counted the seconds already that this would start, some information about the new rules. I'm happy that I can do a few things a little shorter here, because we will have later on presentations who will also cover parts of it. And the other thing I'm really happy with is that Francis is with us. So if there would be some special questions which are related to stewarding, starting with warm-up, what is allowed to do there and not allowed to do there, or tech things, I know that she is the much better expert than I am. So I'm very happy that Francis promised to support me just in case there should be questions coming up. So if there would be questions, judges' questions about stewarding, that's maybe also the right moment to raise these questions. As usual, and you might know these first slides, because more or less it's always the same in the beginning, some remarks. Once again, in 2019, there was no full rule revision. You know that there are two different things. We are changing rules maybe too often, but we do that year by year. And the workload for the jumping committee is getting bigger and bigger. The time we spend on rule changes is incredible in the meantime. And at least we are trying to minimize that a little bit. So let's see how that works in the future. There was a plan to do the next full rule revision in 2020 to come to effect in 21. In the meantime, it seems that we have delayed that by 1 year. So for the 2021 rules, we will only make important rule changes related to horse welfare, to safety, fairness, these things. After that, we will start immediately the full rule revision. And I'm not even trying to promise something here, but we will try to change the concept to a certain degree, because there are some things are in twice, some things are contradicting, because the one rule says this and the other rule says something else about the same issue. We have to have more consistency in some of the words we are using. Just to give you one example, the word elimination gets more and more wishy-washy. In the beginning, elimination was something between start and finish line. Now we have elimination after the competition. We might even eliminate somebody before the competition and so on. So we need a little bit more legal consistency. That will take some time. I also count on you there. So every time you see something where you see there is something which could be improved, please let us know. But please do me one favor, please do that in writing, because some people approach me always at shows and say, please bear in mind, I feel that I'm getting older and I see that my brain is not working that good anymore, that I can keep that all in mind. So if you have an issue with the rule, just send an email to the jumping department, and then you can be sure that we deal with that. Next rule revision, most likely, if there is no change, in 21 for the 22 rules. That's the idea. Michael, correct me if I say anything wrong, but that is what we are planning to do. Yeah. So, once again, it's still not the ivory tower of the jumping committee in Lausanne. It's still that we approach all stakeholders, and we are happy about the feedback we get from the stakeholders. Everything is discussed in the jumping committee. Then we make proposals, and then we get feedback again from all the stakeholders, so everybody is involved. I'm really happy that I can say nobody can say we were not informed about that. All the stakeholders are constantly informed about that. All the stakeholders constantly give input, thank God. So we are hoping that we're making rules close to reality. Sometimes it is somewhat bureaucratic. Sometimes there are a lot of legal issues. I'm aware of this. But once again, like it or not, the sport has changed. And one thing which has changed is that there is much more money involved. And when it comes to a 1 million euro Grand Prix, people lose completely their sense of humor. It is what it is. And don't mention common sense. Yeah? The lawyers are already waiting. And this is nothing against lawyers, by the way. So, sometimes we have to put in rules which on first view look a little bit ridiculous. But if you think about the consequences it could have if we wouldn't have the rule, then you might understand why we do that. All these rules were approved in Moscow at the last General Assembly. So now the rules are in force since the 1st of January. I'm pretty sure that this is a year where you are much more prepared than usual because you played already with the mock exams and you definitely spent a lot of time between Christmas and New Year reading rule books with the open fire in your living room and nice Christmas cookies and all these things. I can imagine how nice that was and how much your partners like it when you were sitting there each and every evening reading rule books and all these things. However, maybe that helps to make it a little shorter. So we have added a few new rules. We made some modifications. We made some clarifications to make it easier to understand. And we even made a few corrections where we found out that the text was wrong or whatever it is. To make it a little shorter, I'm not going through the whole rule changes because even the change of a comma or to make a full stop, everything which is in red is a rule change and has to be approved, but I'm not going through all of that. So I'm trying to focus on the most important things. There's still a little bit homework left. This is what I usually say, but now most likely you did the homework already, and maybe you know already more about the rules than I do. And if I should say anything wrong and somebody would like to correct that, I'm very happy. Old text in black, new text in red as usual. So, first remark, and this will be Michael's business later on to come back to this, and so I'm only making one point on that. There are no more appeal committees at no level, not at normal CSIs, not at championships and games. So you will see a lot of red things. Everywhere the appeal committee was mentioned in the past is now something in red and it's scratched and it's out. Michael will explain to you most likely later, or you can ask questions about that, why we did that, but there is no more appeal committee. So all the references about appeal committees are out. Arena schooling areas and practice obstacles, there is one small change about the ground line. I hope that I can do that, otherwise Francis will correct me immediately. So if there is a ground line on the take-off side of a vertical obstacle, so the word vertical has been added to make it absolutely clear that this only works for vertical. A ground line may be placed on the landing side of the obstacle at an equal distance up to a maximum of 1 meter. And then there is a new sentence to make it clear, a ground line may never be used on the landing side of a spread obstacle. Obviously, some people had a little bit of problem to understand this rule. There is not really a change there. It's just, it makes it somewhat clearer. So to use one picture, this would not be allowed. This is a spread obstacle at the warm-up, and there is a pole behind the fence, and this is not allowed. I guess that's clear. One change about obstacles. And this is the rule about the water jumps. You see, this is the old rule. The water jump may not exceed 4.50 meters in spread, including the takeoff element. You know that in the past we had somewhat discussions about the use of the water jump, and some people were in favor of taking the water jump out completely. This jumping committee and also the support from most of the stakeholders on that field is that we should keep the water jump, because this is part of history, this is part of the test, this is part of the sport. However, we think that we can use the water jump maybe in a slightly easier way. So the rule change is here. Instead of 4 meter 50, the new rule is saying the maximum is 4 meters. Because everybody who is a little closer to course design, and I do not know if Santi is there already, but he might come back to that a little later. It's not really the question how wide the water jump is, what the spread is. Some horses do not jump water at all, and it doesn't matter whether the water jump is 2 meter 50 or 4 meter. Some horses always put a foot in the water, and it doesn't matter whether it is like this or that. So it just makes it more horse-friendly, and also the criticism you sometimes get, how can we train a horse, and all these things, you know about all these discussions, and I don't want to go through this. I guess with this rule, we make it safer, we make it easier, and we still keep it. And I guess this is a good compromise. I could spend now 50 slides on just one issue, and I try to make it a little short. And this is everything which is related to falls, which is most likely also your most favorite subject, because it gives us a lot of work. However, I do not want to be sarcastic here or something. It is very, very important that we have implemented the rule, because it's horse welfare on the one hand, and we all know that we are responsible for that, and it's to a certain degree athletes' welfare, and it is what it is. We have to take over the responsibility, because in the heat of the moment, fighting for success, fighting for money, fighting for medals, for honor, for all these things, sometimes athletes forget how important their own safety is and how important it is that they take care that they are fit to compete. So, going through the rules, I'm trying to avoid to read all the text to you because you know most of it, and I want to highlight a little bit the modifications. The first thing is fall of athletes, and just to make that clear, all the pictures I'm using here are from very easy falls. So all the riders got up and were happy, and all the horses got up and were happy. I'm not using any cruel pictures here of any spectacular accidents. Before I tell you the whole rule, just the story behind. You know that in the old rule book we had a clear rule about falls, and that rule was only related to the competition arena. So every time a rider voluntarily or involuntarily would leave his horse and has to mount again in the competition arena, this is a fall with all the consequences. That was the old rule. Then last year we have extended this to more or less the whole showground. So the fall rule, when it came in to get the medical service in and so on, would also count in warm-up arenas, on the way from the stable to the warm-up and so on. But the rule remained the same. And what the rule from the legal point, and I know that this is ridiculous, from the legal point said every time a rider leaves his horse, we consider that as a fall, because we needed that for the competition arena, because otherwise, every time a rider would have had a fall, he would come and say, no, I didn't fall off. I dismounted, and I'm not eliminated because I dismounted. This is not a fall. So that was the old rule. If you transfer this to the warm-up from the legal point, every time a rider dismounts because he has to change the boots or he takes off his coat, this would be a fall. We all agree that that was never the sense of it. We all agree that hopefully last year nobody has used this. I would like to quote Sven, who is sitting there, who once said, use your brain from time to time, which would help, and I strongly support this. I hope that you all used your brains and you did not call the doctor when somebody dismounted to take off the jacket. But from the legal point, it would have been a fall, and don't test that at Olympic Games, because you win a medal later on and somebody says he hasn't been eliminated because of a fall and he hasn't been checked or whatever. So we had to change that. That's a little bit the reason why that rule is getting longer and longer and longer. So, talking about a fall of an athlete. Fall of an athlete in the competition arena, that's the first headline. The rule as such remains completely unchanged. Everything which happened in the competition arena. Oh, that's beautiful music. Everything which is happening in the competition arena is more or less unchanged. It just gets a new paragraph. If it is not clear that an athlete has used some form of support or outside assistance to prevent his/her fall, the benefit of doubt must be given to the athlete anywhere outside the competition arena. So, an athlete is considered to have fallen when involuntarily, he/she is separated from his/her horse. If an athlete has voluntarily dismounted, it is not considered a fall. So, outside the competition arena, it's up to you to decide, and I count on your expertise to find out what is a fall and what is dismounting. Riders might pretend in the warm-up that they dismounted, but I hope that the chief steward or the stewards on duty will make a clear judgment on that and then involve the ground jury or the paramedics and all that normal procedure. There might be also somewhat a benefit of the doubt if you are not 100% clear. But in this specific case, it's always better to get somebody checked by the paramedics or by the doctors, by the medical team, to be more precise. I said already twice paramedics, and I shouldn't have said that. What I wanted to say was medical team. Sometimes it's better to check one person twice or one time more than absolutely necessary than to say, most likely that was okay. So keep an eye on that, make your judgment, and use this rule. Fall of horse, that's still more or less the same. I guess we do not have so many problems, or we did not have so many problems with the fall of the horse. That's crystal clear. The procedures are crystal clear. The vet is taking a look at that together with the judge, just to remind you. That's more or less the same procedure you would do as you do at the horse inspection. I'm not talking about the first aid component if there is really an accident that the vets take care of about the horse. But if then some hours later, the next day or whatever, you have to check the horse, you do exactly the same as you would do at a horse inspection. You let the horse trot, and then together with the vet, you decide if the horse can compete or can go on competing or not. So, fall in the competition arena. Yeah, unfortunately, it gets a little bit more complicated. So, we have several cases how you can fall in the competition arena. The first situation is you have a fall prior to starting the round. So the athlete is in the competition arena, has not crossed the start line, but the athlete falls off. Let's concentrate on the athlete. The same would be if the horse has a fall. So in the event of a fall of an athlete at any time prior to starting the round, the combination is not eliminated, but will not be permitted to start in the round in question. I guess that's crystal clear. Please stop me if you have any doubts, any questions here. Yeah, it would be good if we all leave and we all read from the same page in the future how to deal with that. So now there might be a situation that an athlete has entered more than one horse in the competition. He is out with a one horse, that is clear. So, but if the athlete has entered more than one horse in the competition concerned, she must be checked by the event's medical service. Checked by the medical service. There is a change in the wording. It was cleared in the old rule. Now it is checked. As I'm not native English speaking, I can't explain to you exactly the difference between checked and cleared, because most likely for all the non-native English speaking people, that sounds the same. But once again, from the legal point and from the meaning of the word, there is a difference between checked and cleared. So now it is checked to make it a little bit less dangerous for the people who are doing the job, that they might make wrong decisions. So the new word is checked by the event's medical service before he can be permitted to take part in the round in progress with his/her other horse. So, and there is of course a little bit flexibility depending on the number of horses there are in the competition. So in this case the ground jury may give the athlete a later starting position if considered necessary. So if that is still work in progress, the athlete is still checked by the medical team, and then he has just got the permission to continue, and it takes a while till you get the message and the paper and all these things, and then you find out, oh, there are only 2 horses left, and then he has to start. Then it wouldn't be good for horse welfare if the rider has to take the next horse and has to go in without warming up and all these things, so you can give him a later starting position. Is that clear? That's good. So, still the same case, fall prior to starting the round. The horse must be cleared by the veterinary delegate. With horses, we still talk about cleared, because first of all, we know that the veterinary delegate is a doctor, is a vet, is the highest qualified expert you can have in these teams. So we still clear horses, but we check athletes before it may be permitted to take part in the next round or competition at the event. Any questions about that? Good. Next case is, we are still in the competition arena, but now we have a fall during the round. The rider has crossed the start line and the rider has a fall. Same applies for horses. I just try to make it a little shorter. In the event of a fall of an athlete during the round, the combination is eliminated. That was always like that, and it's still the same. If the athlete has entered more than 1 horse in the competition, he must be checked by the event's medical service. That's always the same procedure. Before he can be permitted to take part in the round in progress with the other horse. So, same procedure, with this horse eliminated. With the other horse, he could compete. Once again, if necessary, you can give the rider a later starting position. That's horse welfare, that's fairness, that's doesn't give the rider a huge advantage. However, at a certain point, of course, you have to stop the competition at a certain time. And in this case, it might be a disadvantage for riders if they are pretty late on the starting list, because at a certain time there are no athletes left and you can't give somebody a later starting position than the last one. By the way, it's nowhere mentioned, also for all the other cases, that you can't have the last starting position, because people always say, but I can't put him last. The last has to stay last. It's nowhere in any rule. Not for jump-offs, not for whatever. If you delay a rider, you should try to avoid that, but it's not regulated in any rule. That's one of the fairy tales. So, any question about that? Good. Still fall during the round. Same procedure with the horse as always. Slow me down if I'm too fast here. Now there might be a fall after crossing the finish line. So the rider has finished his competition, has a result. First of all, we really should agree that the fall after the finish line has no influence on the result. So please do not eliminate a rider after a fall after the finish line. So in the event of a fall of an athlete after crossing the finish line, the combination is not eliminated from the round in question. However, the same procedure applies with checking the rider, with taking care if the rider wants to start in any other competition. This is not part of the rules, but I'm just drawing your attention to that once again. Even if there is a fall in the last competition of a show, please take care that the rider will be checked. You still have to do an accident report if it was an accident. You still have to take all these procedures, because the sense of it and if you understand the sense, then you understand why this is the case, because you can say, if it's the last competition, why do we do that? This information goes first to FEI, and after that, FEI informs the national federations about that. So if a rider had a serious accident at a show, maybe with a concussion or something, the national federation should know, because then the federation can replace that rider for next week's show if they are informed about that early enough. The national federations will never know that a rider had an accident if we do not inform the FEI, because then the FEI will inform the national federation about that. Just to make that clear, if a rider falls in the last competition, please still do exactly the same. Same applies for a fall of a horse. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, please. Then we just wait for the microphone, and then I hope that I can answer the question.
Marek Zaleski, Poland. I have a question, not to this one, but if you can go back. Okay, we have the situation that the rider is the last, and he is the winner. He's falling down after the finish line. Now, the prize-giving ceremony is coming. Do we should wait for him if he will be checked by the doctor, or the stewards allowed him to sit on the horse, even the same horse or the other horse, to go to the prize-giving ceremony? Because the organizing committee want to do that quick as possible.
Do you want to have a legal answer, or do you want to have a no? I see your point. I want to draw your attention to the fact that it is nowhere, and you might like it or you might not like it, it is nowhere written in any of these fall rules that after a fall you are not allowed to mount again. You can sit on your horse, you can go back to the warm-up, you can school your horse, you jump another fence. There's nothing in the rules that you're not allowed to do that. What the rule do not allow is to take part in the next competition. So, after a fall, you are the last rider, you have a fall after the finish line. To do the prize-giving ceremony is not to do another competition. So the rider is allowed to mount, and the rider is allowed to take part in the prize-giving ceremony. And then, please, the normal procedure comes, and then the rider has to be checked before he can do the next competition. But from the legal point, that's the case. And we are just talking about rules here. We are not talking about situations that a rider has a bleeding wound at his head, and he says, I'm not going to see the doctor, I'm doing the prize-giving ceremony. So, yeah. Sorry? No, for me it depends on the situation. In general, you can allow him to take part in the prize-giving ceremony.
You are completely right, but from the legal point, for the legal point, if we allowed him to go on the arena again, and then the lawyer is coming that he have the stroke or whatever later on, say, oh, somebody allowed him to go.
No, from the legal point of view, he can do everything with this horse. He just can't jump another competition. And a prize-giving ceremony, in my prize-giving ceremonies, they never jump. So I hope that they are not jumping another round before the prize-giving. Michael, anything to add there?
I think in the rules, in the general regulations, there is a provision, but I need to double check that the ground jury for safety or for other reasons, you may allow the rider not to be mounted, so you can go to the prize giving, so he can be walking to the prize giving ceremony, so you don't need the rider to be back. So I think that would be one of the options. I think from a legal perspective, I will do it this afternoon as to what are the expectations from the FEI for you to act in case of a fall on the follow-up, and what are the liabilities, if any. So I will suggest that we tackle that this afternoon during my session.
Yeah, I can't agree more, because Michael said more or less the same I did. It depends on the situation. You see how serious that was. There is no reason in general to say he can't take part, and you can give him permission to walk in, to come without the horse, and without any doubt, if a rider has an accident after the round, and even if he won the competition, and for what reason ever he can't attend the prize-giving ceremony, there is no reason to change the result. Don't say, oh, the rider is on his way to the hospital and he hasn't appeared in the prize-giving ceremony and now we eliminate him or something like that. Yeah, don't laugh. We had that. We had that. We had that. And for other reasons as well. So be flexible with that. You have seen what the fall was. And once again, it's not that easy. Sometimes a very easy fall, or a fall looks very easy and it's very serious. And sometimes somebody's doing salto mortale and he gets up and nothing has happened. Yeah? So it depends on the situation. Good. Where was I? Okay, I just move on a little bit, and I try to not to go through all these slides, maybe. The general procedure is always the same. Rider horse has to be checked, and sometimes you give him a later starting position. In all these cases, horse and rider friendly. So, yeah, that's all still the same. In all cases of a fall of an athlete and or horse anywhere within the grounds of the event, the ground jury reserves the right to exclude the rider from participating further in the competition and or event according to Article 140.2 of the General Regulations. Most likely Michael will say something about that, but just to show you this article again, because this is essential that you know that at any time when there is an issue, you can use this article, which is saying the ground jury, after consultation with the responsible medical officer, that's very important, not because you say, oh, I guess he's no longer fit, it needs the consultation, at any time exclude from further participation in the competition or an entire event any athlete or participating support personnel who is unfit to continue by reasons of a serious or potentially serious injury, impairment, or health condition. So maybe you just make a little remark or you make a copy of this and put that also in your rule book, because you might use that at a certain time. Good or not good? Just a little bit a change of the wording. Disobediences and falls occurring between the moment the athlete combination enters the competition arena and until the moment the combination crosses the starting line in the correct direction are not penalized. I guess that's also clear. This rule I've just shown you comes up again. It's once again mentioned, once again the reference to the general regulations. So if needed, you could do this. There are lots of clarifications to several situations related to jump-offs. In situations of a jump-off, in situations of a 2 rounds competition, in a situation of an immediate jump-off. If you understood the general procedure, then it's crystal clear how to react in this situation. As I want to skip a few slides because, as usual, time is a little bit too short. Do you have any questions on this? And then I'm very happy to go through the slides. But as I say, yeah. Wait for the microphone, please.
Just checking, can't we use this if we think that the rider, according to his, the gentleman question there, can't we use this to tell the rider, no, you cannot remount, and then he can just go?
Absolutely, yes.
Using this article?
Absolutely, yes. If in this situation you are sure that the rider should not remount. Even if he is the winner, then you tell him, for the moment, we think that you are not fit. However,
this is our legal
legally
coverage.
It needs the consultation with the doctor. And if you then both come to the conclusion that the rider should not mount, then it's fine.
And this is our
Yeah.
backup rule.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, general regulations, what was it, 140, I guess. Good. Any further questions to faults and all these things? Good. Then let's move to some other important things. There is a modification in Table C. You know that we made some exceptions in the past when it came to the seconds you add because of a knockdown pole. As usual, some things start in a very nice way and exceptional and work very, very well, and then it gets more and more popular, and unfortunately we had to see that the rule we had introduced 1 year earlier or 2 years earlier and then modified slightly last year, that you can go down to 2 seconds indoor if the competition is minimum 1.50 m and all these provisions which were foreseen there. Unfortunately, we saw that it became more and more a horse welfare issue because there were more and more indoor Table C 1.50 m or higher on 2 seconds. And the consequence was that the first consequence was that course designers did not really build 1.50 m anymore, and the courses were 1.40 m to 1.45 m. That was definitely not the sense. Then we tried to tackle that by making it clear that then at least a certain number of fences must be 1.50 m in a 1.50 m competition. And after we did that, we saw that this became really a horse welfare aspect, because a decent number of riders obviously didn't realize that the fences were 1.50 m, and they took the full risk, because if you add only 2 seconds to the result, you could live with some poles down and you would be still maybe fast enough to receive a higher ranking. And we had situations in some classes where people with 4 fences down were still in the top 10 because they were so incredibly fast with the horse that they took any risk and they crushed through the fences and the poles were flying, and these are really pictures you do not want to see. So what we did now, you might like it, you might not like it, but that's the way it is. A very clear rule now: obstacles knocked down while jumping, 4 seconds, 3 seconds for the second phase of a 2-phase competition, for knockout competitions and any jump-off under Table C, for outdoor competitions, and 3 seconds indoor. Very easy rule, very easy to understand. Some of you might still remember that rule because that was where we were coming from something like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. That rule worked very well. There has to be a difference indoor and outdoor because of the length of the course and some more things about the specific issues of courses, and Santiago might explain that all to you. And I'm very happy that we have that rule now, and this is not another strange idea from the committee. We were very happy that we were really strongly supported by owners, for example. The owners and the Jumping Owners Club supported that and made the same proposal, and we received the same proposal to change that rule from several stakeholders, and we were very happy to change it. So, jump-offs. There are no real modifications, just there is an article, or there was an article about the starting order in the jump-off. The article is exactly the same, it just has been moved to another article number. So what you had under Article 235 5.2 is now moved to Article 252. So if you take a look at your rule book and you do not find the article anymore, that doesn't mean that the rule is no longer existing. It's just at another place, and I just want to draw your attention that this has been moved. As you will remember, last year we changed the rule for the classification of riders in a jump-off or in a second round who haven't finished. Everything I'm saying about the jump-off also applies for the second round. To keep it simple, we just talk about the jump-off now. So we have changed the philosophy a little bit because according to the very old rule, the philosophy was in a jump-off, somebody who tries hard and then is eliminated, or somebody who even tries hard and then has the first refusal and then retires, they should be better off in the ranking compared to somebody who says, I'm not even trying. And from the competitive point of view, I do understand that. But times have changed here as well. Once again, we have decided to take horse welfare a little bit more into consideration. Horses jump a lot these years, and we are sure that if a rider decides not to take part in the jump-off, he will have a reason. And if you think back about the old rule, then you had to differ between a valid reason and a not valid reason. And so nobody could ever explain to me what a valid reason was and what a non-valid reason was. Do we trust riders if they say it doesn't feel well today and I do not want to use the horse? Or do we then say, no, 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 you are cheating. Of course, it felt well. It looked beautiful. So why do you say it didn't look well? So how can you really make that decision? Our opinion was that we should keep it simple because you might otherwise motivate riders in a high prize money competition to compete even if they know that they should not compete in the jump-off, just because they know, even on the lower rankings, if I'm then eliminated or if things go wrong, whatever, I'm still higher ranked than the one who is not participating. And in a €1 million competition, the difference even in the lower prizes could be some €1,000. And this might be the motivation that a rider says, you know what, I know that I shouldn't, but I do. And on top of that, it's very easy not to have this rule that if you are not competing in the jump-off, you are placed lower, because then as a rider you just come in, you pass the start line and you retire. So, and then you are ex aequo with the ones who have retired or eliminated. Do we want to have these pictures? Who needs that? So, and based on that, and that's just an explanation, we do not have the time to discuss that. We have modified that last year. However, we were not clear in one point. And the point is that there is no automatism that they are placed ex aequo with the ones who retired or are eliminated. It's still a judge's decision. It takes your decision. And if you are not happy that they are not competing, for whatever reason, then you still can place them last. So, and this is now mentioned in the text, in the wording of the rule. An athlete who retires is eliminated or withdraws with the permission of the ground jury from a jump-off or second round or winning round will be placed equal last in the jump-off, second round, winning round. The same applies to teams taking part in team competitions, except in the case of teams withdrawing from the second round of a Nations Cup competition. There is a special rule about that. As teams that withdraw from the second round are not entitled to any prize money. That is what the Nations Cup rule is saying. And then there is the second part. An athlete who withdraws from a jump-off second round or winning round without the permission of the ground jury or without informing the ground jury will be placed after athletes that have retired or been eliminated in the jump-off second round, winning round. So, and the same then with the Nations Cup. That means, from the legal point, it's your decision. And in theory, but don't think that this will happen, in theory, the rider has to come up to the jury box and ask for permission. I do not see that this is going to happen. And what I will do is I will do exactly what I did before. If I get the information, because this is what riders usually do, they go to the ringmaster and say, I'm not taking part, please scratch me from the list, and then you get the information from the ringmaster. As long as you do not have any concerns, then just go with this. Keep it simple. Don't call the riders up and tell him later on, I put you last because you didn't inform me personally. Don't make it more complicated than it is already. So, if you are happy with the procedure, you can accept that the ringmaster is the messenger. And then you give your permission and you say, okay. If for what reason ever you are concerned, you can still say, no, I want to talk to the rider, but this should be an exception. you should be pretty sure that if a rider does not compete to win the competition in the jump-off, he will have a reason. And most likely it's a horse welfare reason. Good. And of course, without going through the text, the old text, if they are all agreeing not to compete, to avoid to have a jump-off, and then they think they are equal first, still not. They are still equal last. Completely unchanged. Good. Or not good. Any questions about that? So, then we come to another thing about dress, protective headgear and salute. It's interesting that you find this issue in this rule, and most likely we have to introduce a new rule where we put all the things about tech together, from boots to spurs, because according to this article, spurs are as well part of the dress, and I'm not 100% sure whether this is really what it is, because spurs are definitely not protective headgear, and with salute it has nothing to do. So most likely we will introduce a new article about tech issues. We have introduced this rule: rowel spurs with discs that have notched or serrated edges are not authorized anywhere within the grounds of international jumping events. Just to explain you the reason, very shortly, very briefly, we made statistics of the blood cases, and it became absolutely obvious that there is a link between a certain kind of spurs and shaving of horses. So I can't give you the exact percentage, but the large majority of blood cases we had were caused by exactly these spurs. It is what it is. We were observing that now over years, and it always comes a little bit in waves. We started to deal with blood cases something like 5 years ago, maybe. And then riders realized that this is an issue. And then after the Rio Olympic Games, where we disqualified, in these years we still disqualified riders because of blood cases. I guess we had 4 cases there. Riders became much more careful and introduced these body bandages and belts and all these things. So the number went down again, but then it got up again. And then we asked the question in the foreign judges' report, and all the feedback we got about these blood cases was, in most of the cases, it's exactly that kind of spur. So, clear rule now: rowel spurs with discs that have notched or serrated edges are not authorized anywhere within the grounds. Not only in the competition arena or in the warm-up, nowhere. Maybe we should have added when a rider is sitting on a horse. If somebody's going to the saloon with his big spurs, most likely you can't stop him. So we are talking about these spurs, yeah? And just to make it crystal clear here, it does not matter how sharp, how many, how long, how short, how whatever. Yeah? If there are notched edges, that's the end of the story. So just to show you a few pictures. You have all seen these pictures. These are always that type of spurs. And of course riders will come and say, but they are so soft. Yeah, but they are not allowed. Simple as that. Yeah? Because we simply can't make a rule where we specify from what point it is dangerous or from what point it is not dangerous. And practice showed that these spurs, even sometimes, if they were not really sharp, caused the same trouble. There is one question over there.
Are we having a pop quiz? Because you marked 254 details. It should be 256.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
So
Thank
just
you.
a pop quiz question, it should be 256.
Good. You get a bonus point.
Yay!
Frank, can you please make a note? Unfortunately, you didn't introduce yourself, so now we do not know who gets the bonus point. That's the problem now. I know this, but Frank maybe not. Okay, thank you. Yeah, you made the wrong introduction.
I told you it was hopeless.
Yeah, Nicholas, we have to discuss that.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Anyway, hurry up. You've only got another 7.5 hours to go.
Yeah, I know. So, roll spurs with discs that have smooth, even edges are allowed. So we are talking about these. As long as they are smooth. If somebody is using a razor blade with this, in the shape of a disc, then it's not allowed. That's what hopefully the stewards see before it happens. We had that in practice already last year, and there will be an addition to the steward's manual about the following. And once again, people will say, how pedantic are they and how far away from reality are they? But then maybe you can tell them that you have seen at least one picture which shows that it's necessary. And this is the following. What riders are doing now is they're putting tape around the spurs. Because they say, okay, if I'm not allowed to use the rowel spur anymore with these notched edges and all these things, then I just put tape around it and then it's fine. No, it's not. And it will be clearly mentioned in the steward's manual that it's not allowed to put tape because of that. This is a picture from last year, and I can only use the laser pointer on that part of it. This rider was in very good intention because he put tape around the spur because he wanted to make it softer. What happens then is, first of all, you block the disc, the wheel, so it can't move anymore. And after a while, there is really a potential risk that all these edges come through the tape. And as the wheel is now not turning anymore, it gets even sharper than it was before. And as you can see here with the blood all over the place, that really worked like a knife. So I'm absolutely sure that the riders have a very good intention if they put tape around that because they think they protect. But reality shows that it makes it even more dangerous. For that reason, we think it is acceptable because we are talking about spurs. A pair of spurs cost 30 euro, 40 euro, something like that. I guess it is not too demanding if we think that riders should then invest in a new pair of spur and not manipulate the old pair with putting tape and all these things. So if this should happen, it's not allowed to put tape around the spurs. Just for clarification, we are talking about the discs. If somebody put tape around this part of the spur to protect his boots, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah? Not that you ask a rider to remove the tape here. This spur is not allowed because of the edges, but don't take him out because you have a normal spur and you have tape there. Yeah? Good. Can I quote you again, Sven? Yeah, use your brain. Yeah. Now in the jumping rules, after long discussions, and now it is in the rules as well, because it's better to have it in the rules, and this is the thing about the martingale. Only unrestricted running martingales are allowed. No more than one martingale stopper per rein may be used. Reins may not be configured in such a way as to cause a running martingale to function as a standing martingale. So we are talking about this. This martingale can't move anymore because there is a second martingale stopper. Oops, sorry. That was the wrong one. There is a second martingale stopper over here, so this martingale doesn't run anymore. I know that some riders are not happy with this, but there are only a few, and I guess it should be clear why we do not allow that. The second part of the sentence, reins may not be configured, and so on, is just for one reason, because we want to avoid that the rider, instead of using a martingale stopper, puts tape around it, which has exactly the same effect then, and says, yeah, this is not a martingale stopper. So every time you make a running martingale a more or less standing martingale, it's not allowed. I want to make one remark, and I hope to get Michael's support on that. And I wouldn't do it if I wouldn't ask him before. So I know that I will get the support. I would really like to encourage you to keep your eyes open. And if you can avoid a problem or an issue, please do so. What I want to say, in other words, is if you are stewarding and you see that something is wrong in the warm-up, please approach the rider, talk to the rider, say there's something wrong with your tech, please change it, and take care of that, because if it happens in the competition arena and another steward finds out during boot and bandage control and the rider has competed with wrong tech, this is a reason for elimination. That's clearly stated in the rules. However, the responsibility for the tech is solely by the person responsible, and this is the rider. There is no excuse to say, yeah, but the stewards didn't tell me. I was not made aware of it. I didn't know the rule, whatever. It's a responsibility of the rider, and it's simple as that. There is no reason to say, okay, the steward didn't tell you, and now you can compete with this. As I said, it's good if you see it, but I'm absolutely convinced, still somebody convinces me of the contrary, that there is not a single official we have who let walk the rider into a trap and says, okay, I'm hiding behind the bush, I'm waiting to the rider to go in with wrong tech, and when he comes out after a clear round, I will say, ho, I've seen something, you have wrong spurs, you have wrong boots, you have wrong tech. I'm absolutely convinced, and I want to point that out, because we had some media issues where some things like that were raised. I'm absolutely sure that we do not have a single official who is doing that. And it can happen that something happens between leaving the warm-up and entering the arena. We do not have so many stewards that we can observe each and every step a rider with a horse does, and something can happen with the tech on the way in between. And sometimes something really slips through our nets. We oversee that there is a pole down. A steward might oversee that somebody competes with wrong boots. It shouldn't, but it happens. We are all human beings, but once again, the person who is responsible is the rider, and the consequence is elimination if you are using wrong tech. Michael, would you agree? He's nodding. For the people in TV land, he is nodding. So, good. Thank you. You are aware that we extended the rules about the boots. We have modified the wording. I do not want to go through this again. So extended means we have taken other age categories in, and the third and last step will be made last year. We didn't change the rule. There is a lot of red in the rule about boots, but we modified just the wording to make it clearer. There is no change in the content of the rule. It's exactly the same. It applies for juniors and riders now as well, but the rule as such has not been changed. Everything you know about hind boots, you can still use. Sometimes you have to put things in rules you are dreaming of because you are surprised that this happens, and this is the next picture, and this is why we had to introduce the rule, because a producer approached us with a very new product, and that's why we had to introduce the rule: plastic shields that cover the horse's eyes, for example, glasses or sunglasses for horses, are forbidden. Because we had that on our desk for approval, sunglasses for horses. Of course, because horses these days, they have so many problems to see, and there is so much influence from the environment and what have you. And we simply do not think that this should become part of our sport. I have no idea what your opinion is, but a horse which has serious problems to see should not take part in competitions, and normal horses should be able to compete without these interesting products. So that's the reason that we had to put that in. So, to draw your attention on that chart, this is the next slide is part of the CES. If the people in the back row can still read what it's on that slide, they get another bonus point. So try to get registered with Frank, that you get another bonus point. And you all know this chart here from the jumping rules. You can read that? Yeah? The back row can see that? Okay, good. Another bonus point for Kim. Good. We are getting there. So chances to fail are getting lower and lower and lower. So that all works. So we came to the conclusion that we should step by step limit the use of national judges in international competitions. And I'll tell you exactly the reason. We had long discussions with the officials working group, and one of the things they found out is that people are looking for officiating opportunities, and people do not get invitations, and so on and so on. So I have to say that I simply can't understand, if this is the situation, why we are not using our educated international officials who have gone through education procedures, who we forced to do tests and tests again, and it will be more and more, and the education will become more and more difficult, and you take that challenge and you do this. And at the same time, organizers can use national judges who haven't gone through this procedure, who most likely do not speak English, who are not aware of FEI rules, and so on, while you stay at home and you have nothing to do. And I'm not going to find out what the reasons are that they are like to use national judges instead of international judges. But we have international FEI events. Most likely a lot of organizers were not aware about one simple thing. National judges are not under the umbrella of the FEI. So if there would be a serious issue at a show, the FEI would not take care about monetary problems or something like that. If you make a mistake, as long as this is not negligence or whatever, the FEI will cover that. For national judges, that's not our business. So organizers, to a certain degree, made somewhat risky decisions to use a lot of national judges. So, cutting a long story short, there was a transition period which will finish on the last day of June, and effective as from 1st of July, national judges may no longer be appointed as ground jury members at events of this category and may only officiate on ground jury at CSI 1-star, CSI Young Horses 1-star, and everything which is follow-up. That's the first step. We are aware, and Frank will say something about that most likely a little later, we are aware that for some federations it might be a little bit a challenge, but we will find a way that their top national judges could become international judges if they are really that good. And we would be very happy to have more international judges. But for the national judges on 1st of July, this will be the end of the story at international shows for all events, with the exception of the few which are mentioned. And then we will see how that develops. And most likely the next step would be to take the national judges out completely. But we have to see how that works worldwide. Nabila, wait for the microphone. You have a beautiful voice, I know that. But it works much better with a microphone.
Nabila Al-Ali from Kuwait. So can we use this as a privilege if we notice that some of the NFs are using only the national to report for the FEI and ask you to interview?
I hope that it won't be necessary, because I expect that the jumping department will work very well and will not approve schedules with national judges in after the 1st of July.
Okay, so the exercise will be done by the FEI then?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Everybody has been informed. The organizers are aware of it. We didn't implement the rule on the 1st of January because this would have been very unfair. Because in November, when this rule was approved by the General Assembly, the invitations were sent out already for the first shows in the year. So that's why we said we introduced the rule on the 1st of July. So for the first part of the year, they can use the national judges. But in the meantime, they have to take care that for shows after the before the 1st of July or after the 30th of June, whatever you say.
Thank you.
They can re-invite other people, and then it's good. And once again, we will give the opportunity for top national judges to become FEI judges. They are most welcome, and then they are under our umbrella and they can do the same job. But they also have to do a test, and also they also have to do a seminar. Ferdi.
My question is why you are not consequent and do it also for the one-star shows? That's also a FE show.
Yes, this is what I just said. This is the first step. We have to do this because we have to make rules that work worldwide. And we have regions where they maybe have one international show and they have one international judge. And I'm talking about countries in Africa, for example. So if they have to fly in 2 judges, they will not do the show. So for the moment, as first step, we leave that for the lower level shows like it is. The next step most likely will be that we take them out. But we think that this is a pragmatic solution. I totally understand what you say, and I support what you say. But we also have to make the sport working, and we were sure if we would have taken them out completely this year, this would have had a collapse in some regions. And for that reason, we will introduce that a little later. Yeah, I know.
Stephan?
Yes.
Fredrik Reuterskiöld. Just one thing in 257-24, going back there. There is a change, actually, and that's the pastime bands that are forbidden.
Yeah.
You didn't mention
Francis.
that.
I didn't mention that because I know that Francis is there waiting to make a... No, it's not tomorrow. It's now or never. And Francis will make a comment on that.
Pastime bands are now no longer allowed on any of the categories where the new hindboot rule applies. So basically that means now that the only category that can use a pastime band are the senior riders, the CSI Open competitions. The new category where for hindboot rules they can use the ring, the pastime ring. That's fine, but no longer pastime bands.
Question answered, Frederick? Frederick? Happy? Yeah. Thank you, Francis, for that. That brings me to the end of my presentation. I really like to thank you for your attention. I know that I couldn't cover all the rule changes. There are a few clarifications for the special competitions. I'm absolutely sure that, first of all, you read them already, and that at the same time you understood that. If there should be any questions about that, there will be options to ask later on in the other sessions we have. And this next, is it coffee break? Or no? Oh. And if you do not have any so urgent questions, and I want to specify what I'm saying now, if you have any questions which are so urgent and important that you are sure that you are going to fail your test if you do not ask the question now, then you should do it now. I know that there are plenty of other questions about some issues. I'm sure about that, but as we have to keep the timetable to a certain degree, and as Mr. Spadinger is already in his start box waiting for the signal to start, he had to wait for 1 year to show up, and now is the moment, and he will inform you about another things. So I see there is no so important question. So with this, I finish. I give it back to, what was your name? Nicholas, the one and only. The one and only.
Yes.
And
ladies and gentlemen, can you give Stephan a very big round of applause, because he's finished 8.5 hours early. Which is...
And only because Nicholas kicked me all the time here under the table.